What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today we're looking at Job 40, 41, and 42. So we're finishing this very important book here in the Old Testament, and it finishes just like it started, with the focus on the Lord. So in chapter 40, God keeps talking. Remember yesterday, he was replying back to Job. Now Job is going to say something here at the beginning of chapter 40, where he says, God, I shouldn't have said anything. I shouldn't have complained. I'm sorry. I spoke once. I won't speak twice. But then God challenges him further. So in chapter 40, he goes on to challenge him. And a key verse here is verse 8. And I think this is one of the most helpful verses for understanding this entire book. It says this: will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be in the right? Now, that's God speaking to Job. And the idea is, God says to Job, are you going to put me in the wrong? Are you saying that I was wrong to do what I did so that you can say I was right in the way that I was? So that's like the whole book of Job. Job is continually doing that. Now, not always, not all the time. Sometimes Job has a really good perspective and he trusts the Lord, but other times he puts God in the wrong. And that's what we need to be careful about, because that is what brings this rebuke in Job 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. That's what brings the rebuke. Is not that Job was an unrighteous person, like Job's friend said he must be, but the problem was that he put God in the wrong. Job put God in the wrong. That's where Job went wrong. So it goes further. God keeps talking. He talks about two creatures that are interesting: Behemoth and Leviathan. Now, Behemoth seems like it was some big land animal. Some people say it was like a dinosaur. Maybe. You can read it yourself here and see how God makes things that are big. And I think God's point here is, I made things that are so big that it freaks you out, okay? Now, you're going to question me about what I've done in my power and my wisdom. I made the very things that you, Job, and all humans are afraid of. You guys are afraid of Behemoth and Leviathan. What's Leviathan? Well, chapter 41 is basically all about Leviathan, which is interesting. And it's this big sea creature. Now, we don't know what the sea creature was like. Maybe it's extinct. Maybe it's still out there. Maybe it's referencing something that we already know of. Don't know for sure. But the point is, God made a huge fish, or a huge sea creature that is so fearsome that no human can tame this sea creature. Now, God says, I made him and I'm able to tame him. I can do whatever I want with Leviathan. But you guys questioning my wisdom, that doesn't make any sense. You guys cannot question my wisdom because you can't even control the things that I've made. So much less God himself. So God defends himself here. And in chapter 42, we get Job saying at the end of this book, I've said what I shouldn't have said. I've uttered what I did not understand. Things too wonderful for me. And because of that, he says, look, you have told me everything I need to know, God. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said any of this. Verse 6, therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. And that's a cultural way of expressing that you're really sad or sorry about something. Just like we saw at the beginning of the book, when Job was sad, he covered himself in ashes because he was so sad. Now he's so sad that he made God upset, which is not the wrong response. Sometimes people see this and say, Job should have said, no, you shouldn't be in dust and ashes here. You were right to say those things about God. If you say that, you didn't understand what just happened, because God very clearly rebukes Job, and Job's response here is correct. Now, God turns to the friends of Job and says, you guys were in the wrong because you charged Job with wrong and you said wrong things about me. So he commands them to bring a sacrifice, and he tells Job to pray for them. He says, Job, you're the righteous one here, which again, think about how much this is turned on its head since like a couple days ago in the reading, that they were accusing Job of sin. Now God is backing Job up and saying to the friends, you need to offer a sacrifice, and Job, you need to pray for them so that my anger and my wrath can turn away from them. Which is why we need to read the whole book in context of Job 42, which is why some of you maybe have been watching these videos and thinking, I've never thought about Job this way. Well, that's because sometimes we just dive right in and say, wow, these friends of Job, they must be righteous guys because they say the right thing about God. But God rebukes them too. And he rebukes them in a strong way here by forcing Job to pray for them. I just want you to see how interesting that is, that God will only accept the prayer of Job on their behalf. So God then restores Job's fortunes. That's the very last part of this book. His view of God is changed. He believes the right things about God now. He repents like he should have the whole time. He has the right view of God, and God blesses him, and God gives him more at the end than he had at the beginning, which is an amazing story. And Job, again, did not learn why any of this happened to him. God does not give him the answer. And that's one of the big lessons we should take away from the entire book, is that sometimes when God does things that we don't understand, we don't get the answer in this life. I think Job for sure now knows why this all happened. I'm sure Job knows of the events of Job 1 and 2 at this point, but he didn't know it right here in Job 42. He didn't even know it in Job 39, 40, or 41. He didn't, because God never told him. But we get to benefit from the story, and we should take away the fact that we need to trust God even if things don't make sense to us. We need to trust God even if things are taken away from us that we love. We need to trust God even if we experience the worst times, because God is in control of everything. So that's our reading here in the Old Testament. Let's turn to the New Testament. We just finished talking about the Jerusalem Council yesterday at the beginning of Acts 15. Now we're at the second half of Acts 15, and you might say, wait a minute, did we already read this? Well, it's because it's another time in Acts where Luke repeats something that happened earlier. So what this is going to be is the formal letter from these apostles, these elders, which remember elders are the pastors in these churches, and people like Barnabas and Paul, Judas and Silas actually are the deliverers, are the ones who take the letter to these Gentile churches. And the thing that they said is, okay, you don't have to become a Jew to become a Christian. That's good news for all the Gentiles. But we ask you to do a few things that particularly they rub the Jews the wrong way. So please avoid 4 different things. And they were listed yesterday. The things were this: that you would abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, what's strangled from blood. And all those things you're supposed to avoid. So that is the only requirement that these Jewish Christians give to these Gentile Christians. Other than that, follow Jesus in your own culture. So that's the first half. The second half is interesting because this is actually kind of a bad story. It's a negative story in our reading, because Barnabas and Paul, who have been a team so far, they separate. Why do they separate? They separate because Barnabas wanted to take a guy named John Mark. He wrote a book that you know in the Bible called the Gospel of Mark. So John Mark is Barnabas's relative. He wants to take him on this missionary journey with him. But Paul says, remember when John Mark bailed on us? I don't want to take John Mark because I don't trust him, because the last time we did a missionary journey, he bailed on us. And so because of this, Barnabas says, no, I want to take John Mark. Paul says, I don't want to take John Mark. Barnabas and Paul get together and say, okay, well then Barnabas, why don't you go on a different missionary journey and I will take Silas and go on another missionary journey. So they split, which is not good, right? It's not good when they split. Although, did God use this split? Absolutely. I think God used it to advance the gospel, but in the end, I don't think this was a good time of church unity. And the thing that sparked all this, not to put all the blame on John Mark, but I think he deserves probably the most blame in this situation, he did something that caused Paul to have a lack of trust in him. He was disloyal at a certain point, which led Paul to not trust him, which I think just shows the real life implications of if we are disloyal at times, we can foster a lack of trust in the people that we care about. And I think that's an important thing, especially when it comes to the mission of God. Paul wants someone who's all in. God wants people right now who are all in. And one of the ways we can do that is by being loyal to the mission of the gospel and not being disloyal, like it seems John Mark was for a short amount of time. And that's why I want to be careful to say anything bad about John Mark, because John Mark is someone who is very important in the church. He also got back on the horse, so to speak, because he actually made up with Paul, because at the end of Paul's life, he mentions how John Mark is very helpful in ministry to me. So they get back together at some point and restore that relationship. But right here, it seemed like a negative thing that was happening. So a lot that we're reading today. I think the big takeaway, especially as we finish the book of Job, is that we need to trust the Lord at all times, no matter what, even if we don't understand everything that's going on. So thanks for reading with us. We'll see you back tomorrow for another daily Bible reading snapshot.